Hello friends, welcome back to the next session on Service Operations Management. Now let's begin with our learning. In this particular session, we'll be understanding and dealing with the concept of brand and business opportunities. The learning objectives. At the end of this particular session, the learners will be able to understand what do we mean by brand and what are the various business opportunities, what are the various importance and explain the importance of brand and business opportunities, what are the various activities that are being undertaken in terms of brand and business opportunities? And lastly, what factors affect the concept of branding and what factors needs to be considered while understanding or identifying the business opportunities? Now let's begin with our learning. Now first let's understand what do we mean by brand and what is this association with the concept of business opportunities. So in an organization, when a businessman or a particular managing director or a chairman or an entrepreneur, when does he look towards a certain market, he always finds out that there are a number of or several opportunities that have been available for the product. These particular opportunities are available in terms of the market scenario, wherein he is always looking for selling maximum number of products to the business concerns. This particular business opportunity may be lying in every sector, may be lying in every industry or a particular consideration. So for those considerations, we need to have a proper set or coordinated series of activities with respect to the production. The production activities are being undertaken on the basis of availability of factors of production, that is the land, labor, capital, enterprise, and resources. And when those particular resources are available, we can conduct the business activity in a very effective way, and we can have a proper track record about how we can effectively deliver to the customers. The delivery to the customers can be based on the technical features, the economic considerations, and the social developments. Simultaneously, we also need to have a certain focus as to when we identify the business opportunities as to what we can deliver to the customers, we must always see that what can be delivered to the customers in a best possible and effective way. In the long run, we always want to create the goodwill into the market. And when the goodwill in the market has been created, the product that we have identified or the product that has a certain market position is called as a brand. So here in this case, in the long run, right from developing of a certain product, the company must aim to identify about what are the business opportunities, what we want to actually deliver to the customers, and in the long run, how the opportunities that we are delivering will get converted into the brand of a certain product. And hence, understanding of all the internal and external environment factors is essentially important, and we need to identify that they converse with the others in their network. So it is a well-coordinated series of all the departments. That is the manufacturing, the production, the inventory, the stores, the finance, the marketing, the human resource, the employee relations, the technological department, and so on. So in this way, all the departments, when they come together, when there is a coordinated series of activities, we can create a better business opportunities. We can effectively deliver to the customers, which can ultimately create a goodwill for the organization, and hence it will help to develop the brand for a certain product. Now let us understand what are the main processes that have been associated with respect to business opportunity to develop the brand positioning. So first we need to do is we need to identify what are the various opportunities that lie into a particular market. The opportunity as to the future view of the growth, which is always called as a forecasting or futuristic approach. The second perspective is the fact-based, that is the factual data which is available with us on the basis of certain facts, certain numbers, certain statistics, and so on. So those factual data is essentially important, on which basis we need to understand and identify what amount of data can be collected and how those particular data can be presented to the management. And hence, facts or the data is essentially important, and only on those particular basis, we can come to a conclusion about how those business organizations or opportunities can be created. The third perspective is ranking opportunities for the development. So what is the opportunity for the business that lie? That is, what is the market share? What are the number of customers? How we can create a more number of customers? How various marketing strategies can be applied? How more number of customers can be acquired? And how effective product delivery can be undertaken to the customers? So ranking the opportunities for the development of a business, for the development of the product, for creating your position in the market is essentially important. And that's the concept of identifying. We need to identify, we need to know, we need to search out, and we need to do a primary research as to what opportunity do we have. The next perspective is what is the information that is available with us, and on those particular basis, we need to go ahead with the second consideration, that is the positioning. So positioning is a particular perspectives wherein we need to identify how do we develop a particular brand, and accordingly, how do we create a particular brand which will provide you a winning position. That is a segment with a positioning which is always of a winning nature. So developing of certain brand, developing of a certain market scenario in which people are knowing about your product and how we can continue with this particular product in the short run as well as in the long run. So creating a certain image or a certain position into the minds of customers is essentially important, and that's the concept of brand positioning. The next perspective is actual delivery to the customers. So on the basis of delivery, we need to identify what are the various innovative programs and how do we align each and every activity for the company's intent. So the company's intent, that is the business objectives and the customer objectives, should be identified together, and all those objectives should be met for its fulfillment. And all these activities are being based on a certain foundation, which is we need to look for the sustainment, that is long-term sustainability or the so on. So user experience, data, available information, digital design and delivery, market class, user first innovation capabilities, and so on. So these are the various sustainable factors on which basis we need to identify and how do we sustain the market position in the short run as well as in the long run. Now let us understand what are the various ideas of types for the concept of business opportunity and brand positioning. Number one is retail marketing ideas. So the marketing ideas or the marketing concepts that have been implemented or that have been incorporated at the local level, that is at the retail outlets with the retailers, it's called the retail marketing ideas. So such type of ideas which can be implemented at the retail level or at the very smaller level, wherein the point of sale is applicable, that particular ideas are called as an retail marketing ideas. The second perspective is basic business office supplies. So the business office supplies is a particular point of consideration wherein the actual manufacturing or administrative activities have been undertaken in a business organization. So the point of decision, the place of decision, or the administrative decisions wherever in a particular organization they have been undertaken, such type of basic business office supplies have been implemented, and on those particular basis, we can identify about how those business ideas can be implemented and they can be undertaken. The third perspective is money ideas for starting a particular business. The money ideas for starting a particular business is the perspectives of internal sources of finance as well as the external sources of finance. So when we need to conduct a certain activity, it is very essential that unless and until the finance or the funds are made available, no activity can be conducted in business organization. So the sourcing of finance from the internal and the external sources, and how do we source that particular finance from various ideas that can be generated. That is, whether it is to be raised from the internal people, whether it is raised to the external people, whether it is to be raised from the market, from the governments, for the financial institutions, from the banks, and so on. So identification of such money ideas is very essentially important. And on those particular basis, we need to start a business plan. Accordingly, manufacturing activity, that is business opportunities, needs to be identified, and those activities needs to be undertaken or carried forward. Now let us understand what are the various excellent branding opportunities. So various excellent branding opportunities that are available into the market are, number one is use of various graphics. So on the basis of use of various graphics in terms of advertisement, in terms of posters, brochures, pamphlets, leaflets that we are preparing, such type of implementation of graphics in terms of designing, in terms of a video, or in terms of a certain advertisement are the concept of branding opportunities. So when we use different amount of graphics, it creates certain concept or understanding in the minds of customers as to part of an attraction. The second perspective is the packaging and its aesthetics. So whatever packaging that has been provided to a certain product. So on the basis of packaging, the brand value of a certain product gets automatically increased, and the customer have a certain feel about the protection for a certain product and what does the product actually has its value. So the packaging that needs to be provided for a certain product always plays a very important role about what value of a certain product is and how the product can be handled or can be kept in a very considerable. Now take an example wherein whenever we are purchasing a commodity or a particular product which is of a glassware. So a particular glassware is always available with a certain covering of a thermocol sheet with a proper airtight constitution, with a proper corrugated box which is available, with a proper foil of a plastic which has been packed, and so on. So in this way, what happened? The packaging plays in very important on which type of product it is, what type of product or commodity that we are dealing with, and how the handling of that particular product needs to be undertaken. So product handling techniques is essentially important, and on those particular basis, branding opportunities can be identified, and we can understand about how packaging can be undertaken for a certain product. So excellent branding opportunity is one of the feature or one of the component is also the perspectives of packaging. The third perspective or the strategy that can be used is email. So on the basis of email, we can easily identify about how do we communicate about our product. So communication of about the product is very essentially important, and accordingly, on those particular basis, the customer gets a certain insights or the information about what the product is. So email communication is always in a written format. So how do we describe a particular product? How do we write a particular email? How do we create a certain email in which the product can be delivered to the customers in very effective consideration? How the description of the product can be written, various graphics, various images, pictures can be used, and so on. So writing of a particular product description is essentially important in terms of an email. The next fourth perspective is presentation material. So on the basis of presentation material, one can come to a certain conclusion about what branding the product carries along with it. So how do we present a particular product? How do we describe a particular product? How the product is being offered for a particular description and particular display? All those presentation material plays a very important role, which will create an attraction in the minds of the customers to get or to purchase that product which is he was looking for. The fifth perspective is the vehicles. So vehicles in the sense, what is the mode of transit of the particular product from one place to another place or from one location to another location? Usually, it is a point of manufacturing to the point of sale. So how the product is being moving from one place to another place and how the various activities are being initiated for the movement of goods and services for the effective delivery of sales. At certain cases, the vehicles also plays an important role wherein the customers are demanding for a free home delivery or a chargeable delivery for a certain product. So in case of a certain product which is associated with the delivery at home, so for those consideration, what branding opportunities is, how do we deliver the products to the customer's home, and accordingly at doorstep, how the product is being delivered in a very effective and efficient way. The next perspective is the clothing. So in terms of the clothing, we need to be very careful about the clothing of the people, clothing of the employees, clothing of the trainees, salesperson, and so on. So what dress code, what colors are being used, and so on. So branding opportunities of the clothing of the people and clothing of the product that has been offered is also essentially important for the consideration. Now let us understand what the various branding strategies. So the various branding strategies that can be implemented in a business organization for improving the business opportunities are: number one, flanker or fight brand strategy. The second is the line extension strategy. The third is the brand extension strategy. The fourth is the new brand strategy. So in this particular case, in case of an flanker or a fight brand strategy, it is a combination of line, brand, and new brand strategy. So any combination can be undertaken, and on those particular basis, the brand strategy can be implemented. The second perspective, in case of a line extension strategy, every product is having its own line. The product comes in a certain line or in certain category. That is, whether it is a cosmetic, whether it is a consumable, whether it is a non-consumable, whether it is a durable, non-durable, and so on. So what line of product it is, on that particular basis, we need to identify which strategy needs to be implemented. So a particular product which is an extension to line of a certain product, such type of branding strategy is called as a line extension strategy. The third perspective is the brand extension strategy. So if a particular brand is already existing in a particular market, we can extend that particular brand to certain another level, and a new product or a new brand can be introduced in a particular market. So that's the concept of brand extension strategy. And lastly, the new brand strategy, wherein a newly product is being launched to the market, and accordingly, the new brand is being brought, and accordingly, it is being introduced to the people as a part of a new product or a new brand. Now let's understand or take an example of the dropship model. So in case of a dropship model, we have a certain example of an overload, which gives a certain concept of the customer. So here in this case, we see that we have a certain customer, and accordingly, he wants to purchase certain goods and services. So what does the customer do? The customer places order and pays you a retail price of rupees $200. So accordingly, he places a certain order, and accordingly, the store that is upkeep profit. The store is also having an upkeep profit of rupees $50. So in this case, what happened? The customer is paying you $200. The store is having a profit margin of $50, but accordingly, forward order to the supplier and pay the wholesale. That is, the wholesaler is charging a certain amount of $150. So in case, now here in this particular cycle, the $50 is a profit that has been maintained by a particular store. But in case of the supplier which ships the product to the customer directly, the price will be $150. But if you go to a particular retailer and purchase a product from a retail store, additional amount of $50 you need to pay, and the price of the particular product is $200. So that is the concept of dropship model, wherein we can avoid a certain drop and accordingly the additional amount of money can be saved by an individual. So if you directly get a particular product purchased from the wholesaler or from the manufacturer, the price of the product may be $150, but if you go to a particular store, he will charge you additional $50 and the price of that particular product may be $200. So that is the consideration of the dropship model. Now let us understand what are the various tips and tricks for building a successful brand. So the various tips and tricks to build a successful brand are discovering the brand purpose. So we need to identify what is the purpose of creation of our brand and why this particular brand is being created in a certain market scenario. So understanding the purpose or understanding the motive of this particular brand is essentially important. And on those particular basis, we need to identify why we are creating a brand of a certain product. So discovering the brand purpose is essentially important, and only on those particular basis, various activities or the various measures should be initiated for understanding about how do we create a successful brand. So unless and until the information is being collected, a certain strategy has been designed, we cannot come ahead or we cannot come forward and identify what strategies can be created and how do we develop or build a successful brand. The second perspective is knowing your competition. So we need to identify, we need to assess what competition is prevailing into the market, who are our competitors and with whom our competition has been going on. So identification or knowing of the competition is essentially important. And on those particular basis, we can decide or we can create a certain strategy about creating a certain product in a successful way and establishing a brand which can be accepted by the people for a continual basis. So knowing the competition is essentially necessary. Identifying your target audience. So who is our target audience, to whom we are targeting, and who will be our end purchasers or end users. Identifying and knowing of our target audience is essentially important. Why? Because unless and until we do not know who is our target audience, who is the end users of our product, we cannot come to a conclusion as to what product needs to be delivered, what is their expectations, what quality, what expectations, what brand they are looking for, and what are their takeaways from a certain product that they are expecting to be of a good consideration. So identification of target audience and knowing the target audience is essentially important. Outlining the brand's keys, qualities, and benefits. So simultaneously, when all the factors and consideration have been undertaken, we need to outline, we need to portray what are the key qualities and benefits of a certain product. So description of the product is essentially important. Accordingly, based on the description, we need to portray, we need to communicate the successful or the key qualities and benefits of a certain product. And only on those particular basis, we can give a certain presentation to the people or the consumers that our product is very successful and how it can help or benefit the customers in the long run as well as in the short run. And hence, outlining the brand key qualities and benefits is essentially important for giving an additional information to the customers about the product, about the company, about the features and characteristics of the product. Establishing a unique brand voice. So in order to create a unique brand voice in a particular market, we must have a successful brand strategy which has been implemented or which is into force. So a unique brand voice always helps to create a certain mindset in the minds of customers that whenever they approach a particular store or whenever they approach for a particular product decision or purchase decision, they will be quickly asking for a certain product which is known for their particular mindset and which is familiar with their word of mouth. So for those particular consideration, we need to create a certain voice of a certain customer. We need to create a voice for a certain product or a certain brand that has been associated in a particular market. Now, in a particular example, let's take an example here in this case, wherein a particular advertisement which you see of a Tata Nano or a particular car which has been available of Tata, wherein the tagline of this particular product is Khushiyon ki Chabi, in which the unique brand voice was being created, and accordingly, the people who wants to get a particular consideration as to their happiness, that is a key of happiness, they were going for a certain store and they were asking for the happiness key. And it was denoting that they want a brand or they want a car of a certain brand name only or a particular brand association. And in this particular case, a unique brand voice was created for a certain product, and accordingly, the brand was being asked in a certain demand. Certain brand voice with respect to certain dairy milks, certain Cadbury's, certain chocolates that you purchase, certain jewelry that is been available, and accordingly certain products. So for those consideration, a unique brand voice can be created. Or a particular brand voice in case of a food consumables is in case of an Maggi noodles that the children used to prefer to eat. So 2-minute Maggi noodles, that is, so 2-minute is a brand voice that has been created for a certain product, and accordingly the successful brand or tips or tricks can be, such type of tips and tricks can be used for creating the mindset of certain customers and keeping or getting a place in the minds of the customers. let your personality shine through. So what we need to do is we should always portray what are good products, good features about and characteristics of a certain product, and how those particular good features and characteristics can be available to the customers in the long run as well as in the short run. So letting the personality shine through is essentially important, and on those particular basis we need to identify and analyze about how those particular products, services, and commodities can be available for the better consideration in the short run as well as in the long run. So personality shining of the product, of the managers, of the people, of the representatives, that is the sales representatives, of the management trainees, of the salesperson is essentially important. And on those particular basis, we can clearly identify about how the product can be delivered in a very effective way to the customers. The next perspective is building your brand story. So accordingly, we need to create a story for our brand, and accordingly, the customer should also get attracted towards a certain product or towards a particular story. So when a particular story has been created, a particular mindset has been created that on the basis of certain linkages with our day-to-day activities, with our daily routine, we also get acquainted with these certain products. And accordingly, when a brand story has been created, we also feel comfortable. And accordingly, the acceptance of the product is also very efficient and useful for the day-to-day operations. So that is the concept of building the brand story. Creating a logo and tagline. So accordingly, a proper logo and tagline needs to be created, which always helps the customers to identify and remember about what the product is, what is the tagline of a certain product, and how we can easily identify the product that we need for. So in this particular case, a proper logo and tagline needs to be created for a particular brand, which is always helping the customers to take their purchase decision very effectively and very quickly. A common example in terms of children that you may know is in case of an M. So whenever I say that a particular big alphabet of M is being displayed to you, the immediate name that comes to our mind is McDonald's. So here in this case, we need to have a very understanding that when we create a certain logo or a particular tagline that has been created, that's the concept of how do we remember a certain product. That is, when I say that just do it, we immediately come to perspective that it is a logo or a tagline of Nike. That is a particular stick that has been shown. So that's an example of successful brand. So in this way, in order to effectively deliver the service to the customers so that the customer remembers the name of our company, of the product, and so on, we need to have a creative logo and tagline that's been associated. Now let's understand what are the various key features of a brand. So number one is the promise. So always a brand must have a certain key feature that whatever promise that we are delivering or that we are giving, it will be fulfilled or it will be complied in a certain constitution. So a promise must be associated with a certain brand, which has always been fulfilled by the organization in the full extent. The second consideration of the key feature of a brand is the position. So position is the value or the market position or the market stability or the market consideration or the value that the product or a particular company has in a particular market scenario. So this particular position may be either the net worth, the sales value, the price of a certain product, the value or the position as to the percentage of margin or the market capitalization, profit margin, and so on. So that's the position of the product into the market. The personality traits. Personality traits that has been related to the brand, towards the management, to the people, to the organizations, and so on. So that's the concept of personality traits, which tries to identify about what the product is, how the product is, and what are the various key components or features and factors that have been associated with a certain product. The fourth perspective is how do we create a story for a certain brand. So always any brand or any product that we are using, it is always required for our day-to-day consumption or day-to-day purpose and uses. And we must have a connecting or a day-to-day familiar story with which we can correlate that how this particular product is related to me, and it will help to ease the life of a particular individual. The fifth perspective is the associations. So the word particular product or a particular brand must have a good associations as to the quality, quantity, competency, and the company's perspectives or the investors and the stakeholders' perspective. So association also plays an important role on which basis we can identify and clarify about what the product is and what value is being created for a certain product. Now let us understand what are the various types of branding in a particular market. So the various types of branding that can be created are personal branding, the product branding, the service branding, the retail branding, the cultural or the geographic branding, the corporate branding, online branding, and offline branding. So these are the various types through which the brandings can be created. In case of an personal branding, the branding can be created for a certain personal individual also. So on the basis of certain individual, the brand value for a certain product can be created. Now let's take an example wherein you can say Mr. Ratan Tata Mukesh Ambani, Steve Jobs, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, and so on. So there are certain personal brands that have been associated, and from these particular names, certain products are also being identified. So when I say Steve Jobs, whenever I say Mark Zuckerberg, so personal branding that has been created is the Facebook, Apple, and so on. So in this way, we can easily identify what brand has been associated with that particular product. The product branding. So in case of an product branding, the name of the product itself is a brand about a certain product. So in this particular way, we can identify very easily what the product is and what the brand is been associated. Now, when I say Nike, when I say a particular product or a particular component, then on the basis of name of a certain company or name of a certain product, the brand association can be identified. So on the basis of next perspective is the service. So there are certain organizations which are dealing in effective delivery of certain services. So that particular perspectives of delivering an effective service is called as a branding. Now, in case of a taxation firm, we have various constitution that is Deloitte. So when I say Deloitte, it is a very effective service delivery constitution in terms of taxation policy, and accordingly, the service branding has been associated as a part of an Deloitte. Or another, when you say that you need antivirus software. So for those particular consideration, we have antivirus software as to Quick Heal and ATS, Norton, and so on. So these are the various service branding softwares that have been associated with the name of a certain company, that is service that is been required for an antivirus. The retail branding, that is retail branding with respect to a particular store or purchase of a certain commodities, that is DMart, More, Amazon, Flipkart, Walmart, and so on. So these are the various stores that have been associated for the retail branding perspectives. Cultural geographic branding. So based on a certain culture, based on certain geographic considerations, the branding of those particular products or services are available. Corporate branding, wherein the branding is associated with a certain corporates, with certain organizations, with a certain companies, and so on. So when I say Tata Group, Reliance Group, Apple Corporation, Google Incorporation, and so on. So we are in case we have a corporate branding which has been created with the name of a certain company or with the name of a certain big, large-scale organizations. Online branding, that is available on the various online stores, that is Flipkart, Amazon, Myntra, Snapdeal, and so on. So online branding as to various online portals or stores that is available. Or the online branding that has been undertaken on various social networking sites, that is Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and so on. The offline branding, so types of branding which has been taken through an offline mode, that is to the retail stores or by visiting to the customers personally one-on-one on an individual basis, is called as an offline branding. Now let us understand what are the various types of services that have been associated with respect to the business or the organizations. Number one is the business services. Number two is the social services, and number three is the personal services. So these are the various different types of services on which basis the branding activities can be undertaken and the effective service delivery can be undertaken for the business organizations. Now let us understand what are the various activities that have been undertaken in identifying the business opportunities and how do we deliver or create a certain brand for a certain product. The first perspective is building the future markets. So when we try to identify the activities that are needed to be undertaken at the global level, we need to build the future markets, and our approach must be always futuristic and it should be of a global level, wherein we are looking for designing the new products and services, that is the business development, service new geographies or customers, and that is creating in various alliances and certain strategies, and expanding the sales and distribution for a novo Nordisk situation. So in this way, we must have a various perspectives about how do we build the future markets. Strengthening the supply chain, that is all the activities that have been related for the operational activities, that is ensuring the stable supply of the price, goods, service, commodities, and materials, increasing the product quality and components and features, and providing the discount premiums and so on. And strengthening the supply chain with respect to enhancing the customer engagement, that is clearing and forwarding agents that are made applicable. The next perspective is investing in certain amount of talent. So when we need to create a certain talent in a business organization, then how we can have the branding opportunities or business opportunities in the business organization. That is exploring the new sources of talent. So what we'll do, we will only hire certain people who have completed their SAP, and accordingly, they have a knowledge of SAP. So when we have a particular person who has completed his SAP, then accordingly, the new talent or higher new sources of talent can be identified and they can be delivered a good quality services to the organization. Building tomorrow's workforce, then intercorporation or exchange of employees and a certain outsourcing activities can be given to the business organization, and accordingly, the investment in talent can be taken by the business considerations. And lastly, the concept of leveraging the finances. So availability of finances for the short-term period and for the long-term period. That is gaining the market insights and brand recognition, that is Telefonica, and generating the financial returns, which is a Morgan Stanley and an example of those considerations. So these are the various examples of consideration. That is what we need to consider to build the future markets, to strengthen the supply chain, invest a certain amount of money in terms of an talent as a perspective, which is a human being. And lastly, how do we create a leverage of finances? Now let us understand what are the 5 essential elements in terms of branding. So the first branding essential elements are to differentiate a firm's product, to assist in the promotion activity, to increase the prestige and status, to maintain the product quality, to increase the brand loyalty, to build the values for the customers. So these are the various essential elements from which we can easily identify and create a better opportunities for the businesses, and the brand value for a certain product can be created in the long run. So at this particular stage, we can understand and we can conclude that developing the brand opportunities are essentially important, and they can be only created only when we have a positive and effective positioning opportunities with respect to the brand which stands in the current scenario or which stands in the future scenario. Extending opportunities as to how we define, how we structure, and how do we grow the brands of our offer, and how do we identify and assess the partnering activities. And lastly, creating a brand voice is a distinct personality, which in the long run we need to identify and create as to what is the voice of a particular brand, how do the customers feel about our product, and what are their opinions about the product that we are undertaking or that we are dealing. So once person stand out because of their great storytelling is a distinctive and a unique way in which way we can communicate the product to the people, which is public and masses. Now let's summarize what we have learned in this particular session. In this particular session, we have understood what do we mean by brand and what are the various business opportunities, what are the various activities that have been performed under the brand and the business opportunities, and lastly, what are the various benefits of the brand and business opportunities that can be created in a business organizations. I hope you must have enjoyed the learning in this particular session. We'll stay connected and we'll continue with our learning. Thank you so much for your patience listening. Thank you.